Dragon's Dogma 2 is an open-world action RPG game that is going to feature 10 different vocations. You can think of these as being the classes of this game that determine the weapon you use, but also the skills that you learn. As such, picking the right vocation for you is going to be very important, though keep in mind that you are able to change it at any moment. In Dragon's Dogma 2, you'll be able to pick from one of 4 different vocations at the start, those being the Archer, Fighter, Mage, and Thief, and later on you'll be able to unlock the Advanced and Hybrid vocations. However, it should be noted that the starter vocations, despite their name, can be very powerful and in some cases may actually outperform some of the advanced vocations. In addition to that, you should know that the hybrid vocations can only be used by the Arisen, so the pawns will only be able to be an Archer, Fighter, Mage, Thief, Warrior, or Sorcerer. In this video, I will be going through all 10 of the different vocations, telling you everything we know about them and how each of them is going to play out, so that you can make an informed decision once the game releases. With that being said, my name is Dark Hero and let's get started. Let's start with the Fighter, a versatile and physically powerful combat vocation that excels in melee combat, providing players with a sturdy and resilient character that can withstand enemy attacks while dealing significant damage. Fighters specialize in the use of swords and shields. This combination allows for a balanced approach to offense and defense. The sword is employed for quick and precise strikes, while the shield provides a means to block and counter enemy attacks. Having the ability to block and parry, the fighter can be a one-man army of sorts, especially as they can taunt the enemies with shield summons, and it's also got a skill that enables you to perform a dodge roll that also seems to provide you damage reduction, with the skill True Deflect letting you counter with a single press of a button, and the skill Steeled Foundation letting you use your shield to lessen fall damage. Additionally, the fighter has the ability to imbue their weapons with an element after a well-timed parry, thanks to a skill that previously belonged to the Mystic Knight. Being a purely melee combatant, fighters are going to naturally struggle against flying enemies like the Harpies and the Griffins. Though through the use of the skill Airward Slash, fighters are able to leap into the air to hit those harder to reach enemies, and with Blink Strike to lunge at enemies in a flash, or Compass Slash to hit multiple enemies with a single blow, Fighter is going to be an extremely fluid and competent vocation. Fighter is the perfect vocation for those that want to have a reliable all-rounder that will always bring value to the party and should not be underestimated for simply being a starter vocation. The next vocation is going to be the Archer. The Archer is a skilled and deadly vocation that excels in long-range combat. Archers are masters of the bow, capable of delivering precise and powerful shots to dispatch enemies from a distance, letting them exploit enemy weak points to deal increased damage without getting too close to danger. However, they are not exactly vulnerable at close range either. As with the skill Leaping Punt, archers are able to deliver a weighty kick that can knock foes off balance, all the while launching the user backwards after it connects. Additionally, archers have the core skill Parting Shot, which enables them to fire an arrow while jumping back after performing a leaping punt, so they can deal some extra damage while putting in some distance between themselves and the enemy. And with the skill Heavenly Shot being this very powerful charged attack that deals a ton of damage while staggering the enemies, and Torrent Shot being a skill that allows archers to fire multiple arrows in rapid succession, with the rate of fire increasing with consecutive shots, this vocation has the option to stay on the move while kiting enemies and dealing damage, or it can opt to stay on its ground and go for these more powerful skills whenever an opportunity presents itself. Additionally, archers can use certain arrow types such as explosive or status inflicting arrows to gain a strategic advantage in battle. Archers are known for their agility and can effectively kite enemies, maintaining a safe distance while continuously dealing damage. As such, their mobility and consistent damage make them valuable assets, so do not sleep on the Archer. Next up we have the Thief, a dual-wielding vocation that specializes in a variety of dagger skills that emphasize speed, agility, and precise strikes. The Thief is able to perform a quick evasive maneuver to dodge out of danger with Swift Step and go on the offensive with the skill Scarlet Kisses, unleashing a flurry of multiple slashes or cutting through targets with Biting Wind. Being an agile vocation, the Thief is able to launch themselves off of walls and has the ability to quickly recover from enemy blows and reduce the damage taken thanks to the core skill Controlled Fall. Much like the Strider in Dragon's Dogma 1, Thief can deal blunt damage by performing kick attacks thanks to the core skill Carve, which is perfect for dealing with shielded enemies or skeletons. Additionally, with the core skill Bump and Lift, Thief will, fittingly, be able to rob items from the enemy, although the chance of that happening is going to be very small. And through the use of the skill Skull Splitter, the Thief is able to jump into the air and deal multiple hits as they are coming down, so the higher you are when performing this skill, the more damage you'll be able to deal. Additionally, the Thief is also able to play like a Trickster of sorts, being able to lay down explosive traps that they can activate at any moment, or being able to ensnare targets and pull them to the Arisen. And as if that wasn't enough, Thieves are able to counter enemy attacks with the skill Masterful Kill while lunging at the opponent's backs and slitting their throats. Additionally, the Thief is going to excel at grappling onto enemies to deal damage, hitting them multiple times in their weak spots and causing them to fall down. And with the addition of the new skill Enkindled Blades, the Thief will also be able to ignite his daggers, being able to deal fire elemental damage. And with the skills Smokescreen and Shadow Cloak, you'll be able to play much more like a rogue, becoming harder to detect and hitting the enemies from the shadows. So if you like a vocation that is all about being fast and sneaky, then the Thief is going to be the right option for you. And the final starter vocation is going to be the Mage, a spellcasting focused vocation that is all about harnessing the elemental powers of magic to support allies and unleash devastating attacks against enemies. Mages will be wielding staves as their primary weapon and can provide a variety of utility to the party, being able to serve as competent healers, buffers, and offensive spellcasters. They gain access to a wide range of elemental spells, including fire and ice, lightning, and dark magic. Mages will be able to hit enemies from a distance with their basic attack by firing magic bolts. That being said, they are able to cast much more powerful offensive spells, such as Levin, calling upon a lightning strike to hit the enemy, or by casting Frigger, mages are able to create a pillar of ice that will deal damage to enemies and knock them back, and create a structure that you can climb up to have a terrain advantage over your enemies. Additionally, the mage is able to offer elemental boons to the party, effectively imbuing their weapons with an elemental affinity, so that you and the rest of your pawns would be able to deal fire, ice, and thunder damage. And on top of that, mages are also able to aid their party, being able to cast the skill Halidom to cure an ally of most debilitation. And finally, a very cool and fun core skill of the mage is the ability to levitate by simply holding the jump button. If the Arisen is playing as a mage, being able to levitate might allow you to traverse some obstacles that you might have some difficulty overcoming. When it comes to supportability, Mage is second to none. But don't overlook this vocation just because of its utility, as it does still pack quite a punch with its powerful spells. And now we get to the advanced vocation, starting with the Warrior. In Dragon's Dogma 2, the Warrior represents a vocation that is focused on raw physical strength and devastating melee attacks. They're all about wielding giant two-handed weapons to deliver powerful blows that can cleave through multiple enemies or stagger even the most formidable foes. They have long charging powerful skills that, combined with the brute strength and resilience of the Warrior, make them a formidable vocation in Dragon's Dogma 2. A big novelty for warriors in Dragon's Dogma 2 is going to be the core skill Barge, which allows warriors to shoulder tackle their enemies. Doing so not only provides a little bit of extra mobility to the warrior, but also gives them increased resistance, making them harder to flinch, and so they can use this to charge through enemy attacks as a way to counter their enemies. Additionally, the Barge can also be used as a follow-up to basic attacks, so that you can maintain your aggression. On top of all of that, a new passive for warriors in Dragon's Dogma 2 is all about perfectly timing your swings, making it so that if you can perfectly time your attack after connecting with an enemy, the skilled warrior will be able to swing their greatswords even faster. This is of course a great tool to reward skilled players by reducing the biggest weakness of the warrior, which is that their attacks tend to be very slow, so do try to not button mash with the warrior. Additionally, warriors can play the role of a tank with the skill Bellow, allowing them to shout to gain the enemy's attention. And if you wish to play the warrior as a more utility focused vocation, you'll be able to use the skill Ladder Launch to pick up an ally and throw them into the air to allow for them to more easily reach any flying monsters. Additionally, warriors will be able to sustain themselves very easily thanks to the skill Revivify, which will allow the user a second wind, basically curing them of most debilitations. In addition to that, thanks to the core skills Bulwark and Repulse, making it so that warriors not only take reduced damage whenever they are performing a charged attack, but also allowing them to parry attacks by unleashing a charged attack that can knock the enemies off balance, the warrior is going to be a wall of raw strength. And with offensive skills like Skyward Thunder and Goring Lunge, providing some extra mobility by either lunging into the air to perform a skyward swing, or charging at enemies with his blade, Warrior will be able to use these powerful skills to cleave through hordes of enemies or face off against powerful bosses. So if you like vocations that are all about staying in the opponent's face, this is going to be for you. The next vocation on the list is going to be the Sorcerer, the pinnacle of arcane power that is all about focusing on dealing devastating spells capable of annihilating enemies with immense magical energy. By wielding their staffs, sorcerers have access to an extensive list of spells that can go from altering the terrain to dealing tons of damage, and also providing some utility and support to the party. Sorcerers can also gain some useful passive abilities, that is augments that will cause them to inflict more debilitations with their attacks, or reduce the rate at which items deteriorate. Much like with the Mage, sorcerers have access to a vast array of elemental spells, being able to call upon the elements to summon a massive tornado, or conjure meteorites to fall from the sky. And thanks to Catalyst, another one of these sorcerer's augments, they'll be able to deal increased damage whenever exploiting the enemy's elemental weakness. Just as I said before, a lot of these spells are going to take a very long time to cast, so you do need to be careful whenever performing them. That being said, sorcerers do gain access to a core skill by the name of Quick Spell that will greatly hasten the incantation speed at the cost of some stamina. And of course, if you have more than one sorcerer in your party, as long as you know the same spell, you can synchronize and help cast that same spell a lot quicker. So that way you can, let's say, summon a powerful vortex of dark energy that sucks enemies into its center, or even create these explosive orbs of dark energy that detonate upon contact with the enemies, and you'll be able to do so a lot more efficiently. These powerful spells combined with the Sorcerer's mastery of magic make the vocation a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield. So whether it is unleashing devastating explosions, supporting the party, or controlling the elements themselves, sorcerers are the indispensable asset to any party, and if any of this sounds good to you, then Sorcerer is the vocation for you. And now let's take a look at the hybrid vocation, starting with the Magick Archer. Combining the versatility of ranged combat with the magical prowess of sorcery, Magick Archers wield magical bows imbued with elemental power, allowing them to unleash devastating ranged attacks, while also casting some potent spells to control the battlefield. These magical bows can come with different elements, be it fire, ice, lightning, or even dark, making the Magick Archer versatile against various different types of enemies. A peculiar thing about the Magick Archer is that you don't actually have to properly aim the bow whenever firing these magical arrows, as whenever you aim you'll see this big spellcasting circle, and as long as there is an enemy within that circle, the magical arrows you fire will seek out their target. And so with these homing arrows you'll be able to more easily hit the enemy's weak spot and hit them multiple times. That being said, Magick Archer does have the skill Flame Fang Arrow, which will fire an arrow of magical flame that will explode on impact. However, the cool thing about this skill is that you are able to actually take control of that arrow, so you are able to manually aim it at a group of enemies or target the weak spot. And of course, this being a magical bow, you have access to more elemental attacks as well, with the skill Hailstone Bolt letting you fire off a clump of ice that grows in size the longer it is charged and delivers a powerful blow to foes that it strikes. And I do believe that this skill can also freeze enemies. But just in case it doesn't, you do gain access to the skill Frostseeker Bolt, which as the name implies fires off magical ice arrows that will pursue your enemies and inflict them with frostbite. On top of all of that, Magick Archer also has some party-wide utility, being able to fire off an orb that is going to illuminate the area around you, so you'll be able to more easily explore caves, for example, all the while causing targets within reach to catch fire. Additionally, through the use of Remedy Arrow, you are able to either heal your allies or even revive them if they are down, and with Vim Taking Arrow you are able to take a portion of the enemy's health and give it to one of your allies. And of course, the more enemies you hit with this skill, the more health you'll be able to recover. But if you choose to disregard all of this support and utility, you can go crazy with the skill Ricochet Seeker, which will lose a magical arrow that will keep on bouncing off of walls and hitting the enemies that are within them. So much like with the first game, if you fire a Ricochet Seeker within a cave or a very tight area, you're going to be dealing tons of damage to anything within. The versatility of both ranged combat and spellcasting that Magick Archer brings to the party makes it a very valuable vocation for you as the Arisen. So if you like the idea of ranged combat while also having these spellcasting abilities, Magick Archer is going to be the vocation for you. The next hybrid vocation is going to be the Mystic Spearhand, a hybrid vocation that combines the versatility and melee prowess of the fighter with the spellcasting of the Sorcerer. By wielding a glaive, or as the game calls it, a duo spear, the Mystic Spearhand is capable of handling enemies in close combat by performing all sorts of fast combos while still being able to hit the enemies from a distance. A very key thing about the Mystic Spearhand is the ability to quickly teleport to the enemy to dish out a flurry of melee attacks, or teleport to the head of a large opponent so that you can grapple one of its weak points and deal as much damage as possible. Additionally, the Mystic Spearhand is capable of levitating nearby objects and hurling them at the enemies, or being able to lift the enemies themselves and throw them at even more enemies. They're also able to sap the vitality of an enemy, dealing damage and being able to regain stamina this way. And they can also conjure a magical barrier to protect themselves and any allies within range. And if you ever need to hit enemies from a distance, the Mystic Spearhand does count with Redoubted Bolt or Scattering Bolt to be able to hit flying enemies or just be able to attack from a safe distance. And to top it all off, Mystic Hand has by far one of the most hilarious skills in the entire game, with the skill Unto Sky being able to launch smaller targets at great distances. Of course, keep in mind that if you launch an enemy across the map, you won't be able to get any loot from it. It's safe to say that the Mystic Spearhand is looking to be a very powerful vocation, as it's going to do very well in both melee and ranged combat, and given that the game doesn't have a proper dodge roll, being able to cast this magical barrier while also having a teleport skill is going to be very valuable. So if you like to combine melee combat with spellcasting, and piercing foes and hitting them multiple times with a large glaive, then the Mystic Spearhand is going to be the perfect vocation for you. The next hybrid vocation is going to be the Trickster, a vocation that is all about conjuring illusions through the smoke that is created by its unique weapon, the Sensor. Using these illusions, Tricksters can make enemies fight against other enemies, while at the same time being able to create different terrain, deal a lot of damage in AoE, or temporarily increase the power of your pawns beyond their limits. As such, the Trickster is going to operate in a short to medium range, despite not being a melee combatant. The Trickster is by far one of the most unique vocations that we have in Dragon's Dogma 2, especially as one of their skills, SPL Incense, is going to allow the caster to detach their spirit from their physical body by inhaling a peculiar incense. By doing that, you'll be able to now control your own spirit that you can use to scout around different places, and through some of the Trickster's core skills, you'll be able to increase the speed at which you control your spirit, extend the distance that you can travel with it, and also make it so that you can repair some of the damage taken whenever the spirit is coming back to you. Additionally, Tricksters also have a very powerful buff that can be activated through the use of the skill Aromatic Rally, which is going to make the Arisen spread incense in the vicinity that will increase the damage of any allies that touches it. And as we saw from some of these gameplay previews, if your pawns are not within reach of the Aromatic Rally, they will actually go out of their way to run into it. Although keep in mind that this offensive buff comes at a cost, as your allies' health is going to steadily fall whenever this buff is active, so you'll have to keep an eye on your allies' HP or make good use of the offensive buff to take care of the enemies as fast as possible. Some of the offensive skills of the Trickster include the ability to summon a dragon illusion that you'll be able to control to deal damage and will inflict a heavy knockdown on any enemies it hits. The Trickster is a vocation that is all about controlling the battlefield by either altering the terrain or using illusions to confuse the enemies or buff your allies. If you like playing as the commander of the group, then the Trickster is going to be the perfect vocation for you. And the final vocation is of course going to be the Warfarer, a special unique vocation that allows the Arisen to use every single weapon in the game, as it takes on different skills from each different vocation. This of course is going to allow the Warfarer to be the most versatile and adaptable vocation in the entire game, as it's going to give you plenty of different ways to tackle each different scenario that you find yourself in. So whenever you're facing off against a griffin and they take to the skies, you can pull out the bow to shoot them down. And whenever you pin them down, you can swap to the greatsword to deal tons of damage. And if maybe you need to shock them or freeze them, or if they are weak to fire for example, you can pull out the magic staff and take care of that. I am very curious as to how the Warfarer is going to work in the full game. This is the vocation that we currently know the least about, but from everything that we have seen, it seems like you can even string together combos from the different weapons of each vocation. Unlike in the first game, each different vocation can only use a single weapon type. Having a vocation that can use all of them is going to be very powerful. Of course, a vocation like this had to come with a drawback, and this one is going to come in the fact that, quite simply, the stats that you gain from it are going to be lower than if you were playing any of the actual vocations. So for example, your strength is going to be lower than that of a warrior's, the stamina you would have is going to be lower than that of a thief's, so on and so forth. This vocation is going to allow for a lot of skill expression, and being able to capitalize on it and find the proper combinations is going to allow for the more skilled players to get a lot out of it. I am very excited to see how this properly works, and as soon as we know more about the Warfarer, I'll be sure to let you know. With that being said, these are all the 10 vocations we're going to be having in Dragon's Dogma 2. Let me know which one you'll be playing first in the game, and keep in mind again that even the starter vocations are going to be very powerful, and in some cases may actually outperform the advanced vocations. I'll be getting my hands on the game very soon, so do look forward to my extensive coverage of Dragon's Dogma 2. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching. My name is Dark Hero, and as always, happy hunting!